Hello. Okay, we're going to talk about Chapter 1 a little bit now. And if you look at your syllabus, it'll show you about it. And it talks about the beginnings of community policing, how it came about. And we start off with a brief, you can follow it along in the PowerPoints. We follow along with how policing kind of started. It started in the UK with tithing. Tithing is a principle of collective responsibility where one person was responsible for night watchmen and that type of thing. And mostly it was to look for fires, but that kind of grew into something where we're looking for people that were doing other stuff. Then they had the Frank Pledge system, which was when people swore fidelity to the king to maintain law and maintain local peace, and then the hue and cry. And that summoned citizens to pursue and capture a wrongdoer. Around 1829, the UK started the modern police force, and that was with Sir Robert Peel. I've included a brief video, you can see it under assignments, of the history of the Metropolitan Police. Sir Robert Peel is the father of modern policing, and he believed in 9 principles of policing, and this was a big change from the way things had been, and to some extent, the way things are now. We've changed a little bit from that, and there's an effort now to get back towards that type of policing. Moving my things around on the bottom here a little bit. One of his missions was that the basic mission of the police department was to exist to prevent crime and disorder. That's pretty self-explanatory, isn't it? Second, the ability of police to perform their duties dependent upon public approval of police actions. That's extremely important when you look at what's been happening today. We are a nation of laws, but how those laws are applied is extremely important. And so you have to have the public support to be a modern police department. You have to consider that. The third one, police must secure the willing cooperation of the public and voluntary observance of the law and be able to secure and maintain respect of the public. Take a look at what's going on in the country today. Do you see that? Mostly in the news you don't. But out of the millions of interactions that the police have each day with the public, you only hear about a few of them a month. They're bad, and I'm not making excuses for them. They need to be repaired. And there are certain parts of the country that got atrocious police-public relationships. A lot of it's due to race, but it's also spread throughout the government. It's not just the police department. For example, in the Trayvon Martin case in Sanford, Florida, that had gone through the politics of Sanford for years. So it was something that was bred there. Ferguson was the same way. It wasn't just the police. It was all the way through the court systems and town hall. So there are some underlying problems, and there's some big problems that need to be addressed. But all in all, I think that you'll find that most police departments, which almost all of them are small police departments, do a great deal to work with the community and build those relationships. His fourth is the degree of cooperation of the public that can be secured diminishes proportionally the necessary use of physical force. That goes without saying, doesn't it? If force meets force, if you don't use force to begin with, you're not liable to be met with it. In my 35 years of policing, I've only been in 1 or 2 fights, and I've been able to talk my way out of most of them. And it's not a hard thing to do. You just got to be humble enough to do it and not put a chip on your shoulder, which some people do. And people are people. They do make mistakes. Number 5 is police seek and preserve public favor, not by catering to the public opinion, but by constantly demonstrating the absolute impartial service to the law. Have we not seen a lot of problems with that? 1950s, the war on drugs. The war on drugs was a terrible mistake. Matter of fact, the police departments didn't like the war on drugs, but it was a political thing. You know, we're going to lock up everybody for drugs. Well, locking up the people that are using the drugs is not the problem. You need the people who are doing or who are selling the drugs and making the drugs. It was a total disaster, and it disproportionately went against Black Americans. The 7th principle is police at all times should maintain a relationship with the public that gives reality to the historic tradition that the police are the public and the public are the police. The police being the only members of the public who are paid to give full-time attention to the duties which are incumbent on every citizen in the interest of community welfare and existence. You can't have a society without rules. The society does not work without rules. And you need to have a cooperation between those enforcing the rules and those following the rules. Everybody has to follow the rules. And you're always going to have somebody that doesn't. But enforcement of those rules is very important. How you do that. They have to be things that society accepts and society buys in. If you don't like the law, you have to change it. Otherwise, you're a lawless society. You can't have a society without laws. Immigration is a big one because Congress will not get off their butt to revamp our immigration policy, our whole immigration system. And that's a travesty. Obama had trouble with it. Trump has trouble with it. Congress needs to act and change it. Number 8, police should always direct their action strictly towards the functions and never appear to usurp the powers of the judiciary. That's why everything is divided. Our country is divided into 3 parts: the executive, judicial, and legislative branch. Policing is part of the executive branch. Legislative makes the laws. The executive part enforces the laws, and the judicial part instills punishment. The test of police efficiency is the absence of crime and disorder, not the visible evidence of police action in dealing with it. I spent my first 27 years in Williamsburg, Virginia, in the police department, and the police chief came from Dade County that hired me, or Dade County in Florida. And he strongly believed in community policing. That was his background. So the way I was brought up in policing was, you're there to serve the public. You're not servants in the sense, but you're there to provide a service. They are your clients. So you want to provide them with a fun place. Let me see, how do they put it? A clean, fun, safe place to live, work, and play. That's one of your jobs. The whole city's job. It's the police department's job. That's what the public wants. That's what the public should get. So, and you can't do that without cooperation of the public. So you have to do those things. We actually took a group 2 years ago to London, and we went to the Metropolitan Museum, and they actually had the walking stick from Sir Robert Peel there and some other memorabilia. It was a very wonderful trip. Hopefully we'll be able to do it again sometime. So when you look past these things, policing in the United States has changed a lot. And I want you to look at the book and go into the discussion board. I'll create a thread and tell me how you see policing has evolved. You'll see evolved. You will see how it was done in the UK. Did we follow the same pattern? Well, we didn't have a king or a monarchy. What did we have? We had slavery. We had people who were indentured servants. We had people who didn't have anything. We had 13 different governments, colonies. So how did the policing start here? Where was the first police department? Interesting enough, where was the first police officer? There's some controversy about that, but a lot of historians believe it was Nola Baldwin, who happened to be in Seattle. Anyway, look at the chapter and talk to me about how you think policing has changed from the way it started in colonial times, which was a watchman type thing, into the beginning of police departments in the Northeast, and then things that have changed our laws, things that have brought in the Bill of Rights, things that have brought in the amendments to our Constitution. They're all important, and they're all supportive of what type of society we want. And it's law enforcement's responsibility to work in conjunction with the public to see that these things are met. Read it, participate in the discussion board, tell me what you think. Thanks.